What's up, everybody? Matt Aguilar here, and welcome to Comic Book Nation's The Pull List, where we talk all things comics all the time. Joining me is one of the best in the world to talk comics with, Kofi Allo. What's up, buddy?
What's up? I hope my settings are here. I feel like my mic kind of came unplugged, so I hope I sound all right, but I'm here.
Nice, sound great. Yeah, sound great. Want to go ahead and Kofi, should we lead off with an announcement, or should we save it for the end? Tease people, let it go to the end. How do you want to handle that?
Let's just get the program notes out of the way just in case, so we make sure we get all that done. Yeah, I think from going forward, the pull list is going to be in audio format. So we are going to be kind of ditching the video format and going audio so we can have a little bit more freedom to kind of play with what we want to do with the show and get our discussions on, but it'll be the same great comic talk, but we're going to be doing a little more audio. Comic Book Nation has grown a lot, and just production wise, we can't keep these pretty faces pretty this often, and so we are going to be doing some things audio, some things video to kind of help us spread out all this content. And Pull List will be going audio from now on. So we still have a live show where we will probably be doing a little bit more comic focus on the live show again. And we'll still have our in-depth discussions of the pull list, like for audio format. So subscribe on all your feeds. We're on Apple, Spotify, Stitcher Radio, iHeartMedia, all of the big things. So keep up with the pull list in audio form going forward. So now I'm just going to do this with my eyes covered just to pretend and prepare that I get ready going forward to see you. But I still feel like we have to look at each other when we record these.
Yeah. So nothing really changes for us. We still have to look at each other. Also, It does actually free us up for more discussion, which is great because of certain things that go in live with the live show and time constraints and things like that. So some of that won't actually be as much of an issue. So it's beneficial in a lot of ways as well. So I want to get to
we've had a rapid 40% expansion in the last year just to get it down to numbers. And we're still tweaking. Oh, yeah, it's a good problem. We're still tweaking things because we put a lot on the plate. So we're going to still tweak things. And we want to get some things kind of produced on the audio side. And we have ideas. So it's going to be fun. And I'm kind of excited because there's things that, like you said, just getting everything to slot and be like, look at this comic and look at this comic versus how many of you are looking at it versus listening to us. Like, we want to be feeding our listening audience because we love you guys and you guys are here. The downloads are here, and so we gotta feed our listening audience. We've been a slave of two masters for 6 years now. But enough about behind the scenes stuff. Let's get to the fun stuff. Let's talk comics. Yeah, we got to do this all.
I am so excited with our first book because The Boy Wonder, the latest DC Black Label release. Everyone knows who listens to the show or the main show that I am a Damian Wayne fan, and I did not really know what to expect from this book, and oh my god, I'm over the moon. I'm just gonna let the spoiler out there. I'm over the moon about it, but I actually want to get Kofi's input first on this before I just start gushing about stuff, because I'm very curious, Kofi, what you thought of this.
We are unapologetic Damian Wayne fans up here. But this book had a lot of what I'm confusing it with actually Batman. Hold up. Let me get back to, because I've read so much Batman in the last few hours. But no, this was a pleasant surprise. I'm surprised what DC is able to do with Damian in solo format, like that Robin series with the whole Enter the Dragon kind of tournament thing. I really dug that. And this, as presented by Juni Ba, I hope I said that right, is as a fairy tale immediately kind of grabbed me. And it's interesting. I like when comics, and this is why I think I like a lot of Tom King stuff, is when they use the format of other literary kind of frameworks to make us look at comic characters and events differently. And this one is doing that in a very effective way. Like, it's a story where Damian's this prince, and the visual representation with the fairy tale. It's almost like an episode of Samurai Jack, except starring Damian Wayne. And it really works for me because I love Samurai Jack. And like that series, this series gets below the kind of tropes of the genre it's working in and kind of really uses metaphor and visual metaphor to really help you understand how Damian kind of sees things in a weird kind of way, and how his perspective must be about everything from who he is and his identity. And I think that's the kind of magic this works. This is very much a Damian kind of trying to figure out who Damian is story, but done in a very novel kind of way. And I dig it, and I dig Damian, and yeah, this one's good. And you could give it to kids and see, or just younger audiences and older audiences alike, and that's a hard thing to pull off.
Right. And they also, I love what you said about like showing it visually, because I thought they did such a great job of displaying the, we obviously have seen the dynamic between Batman and Damian a lot, but some of my favorite stuff is actually between Nightwing and Damian. And yes, I will go on the record again as, a giant fan. They were robbed of more time together as Batman and Robin. So anytime I get to see them together and interacting is a win. And I thought Junie Ba did such a wonderful job of like in expressions and how Damian reacts to things, and also how Damian figures things out by watching, right? He's watching like the whole battle between like Batgirl and Nightwing, or with them, play out, and he learns from that. And a lot of that's done visually, like, and it's not said out loud, and it's conveyed so well. And this book's very funny. It's very charming. And then also Damian's Damian at certain parts in time, especially this is early in his career, right? So he's still learning how to not be a ruthless murdering machine. So I thought all of those things are tackled so well here. I just, and also Chris O'Halloran's colors are just beautiful. There's just some sequences in this book and some pages that are just from like Damian's monologue, like they're just from Damian's internal thoughts, but they're just beautiful, and the way they're presented, I just and that's a running theme of this week's books. Actually, it's just gorgeous artwork. There's several books this week that just knocked it out of the park that way. Yeah, I couldn't recommend this more. I love what they're doing with Black Label, and the risks they're taking, and this is definitely one. We also talked about I think it was Batman and Robin as well, like last year. That was a 3-issue miniseries that really hit that out of the park as well. And so Robin's having a really great run as far as storytelling, and this is absolutely one you should add to your list.
Yeah, I would also say kudos to, I mean, we didn't touch on it, but this book, what it's also doing is distilling so much of what has happened in continuity with Damian, that comic booky complicatedness, and is really just taking the finer points of it and focusing you in on those, so that you don't get weighed down by like every single minutia of what's happened with him and Batman and Nightwing and Red, all the other Bat family. But it is capturing, the overall beats of that very well. So good work on that part too.
For sure. And even the stuff they touch on, with his, with Roz and Tali, like all that stuff too, the way that's presented. Yeah, this is a win across the board. Moving to another thing we have championed a lot on the pull list is the Energon Universe. And there is a new Energon Universe Special that is out, which contains 3 stories, one for Transformers, one for Void Rivals, and one for G.I. Joe. They all, if you've been keeping up with the G.I. Joe books, especially Duke, and also actually Cobra Commander, because there was a big reveal there as well, these books are a lot more interconnected than you might actually expect. And so this special really brings all that together, sets the stage for the next year of books in both of those cases. I cannot rave about this universe more. Number one, there's a character appearance that I don't want to spoil because it's a big deal in the middle of the book, but they are one of my favorite Transformers. And so for that character to pop up and that character to be kind of a linchpin moving forward, I am extremely excited. But as you've seen in the preview, the questions about Megatron, like there's answers here, and there's some big things. I mean, obviously that was one of the things in Cobra Commander that was revealed about where was he and what happened, and like the way that's all portrayed and laid out is something. And then the G.I. Joe books, if you've been keeping up with Duke, I've loved that series, and so they build on that, and there's intrigue moving forward within the G.I. Joe groups. And we got 2 new series coming out for G.I. Joe later this year, including Kelly Thompson's Scarlet, which I cannot wait for. So if I was already hooked on the Energon Universe, but if you were to hand this to someone and it's like, hey, see if this gets you hyped, and you might want to dip into these books. I think it did its job.
Yeah, I mean, this is how you do it. This is what you give me instead of like that biker mice from Mars,
Why you always gotta
that
take shots at
anthology.
microbiome?
Yeah, like I mean, that one was just kind of hokey, and this is an actual universe. Like what they've done with this in the past year, and I didn't even realize it's like, yeah, this is still so new. Like it's just been a year, but the way they've executed on this is just it's pretty phenomenal. Like everything you read in this actually factors into the other books in some kind of way. There's actual connective tissue about it. And it all feels like a bunch of 80s, 90s kids like us sat down and geeked out and came up with like the ultimate lunchroom conversation about like, what if you had like Transformers and G.I. Joe and Void Rivals like all together? Like, and they've actually found like organic connective, no pun intended, but organic connective threads for how these things actually meld together in a compelling way. And just the story about Megatron alone and, who he's up against and like what's going on with that. Like you see these two kind of titans of these two series like going at it, and you're like, oh my God, like, yeah, neither one of them is scared. They're just like, yeah, what? Like, who are you talking to? No, who you talking to? Like, and yeah. And it's amazing. And it's like, it's everything my 80s, 90s kid self would, go nuts over seeing. And at the same time, you actually get like good characterization. Like, I feel like I know Baroness like even better from this like little monologue about her that's done very well, not even directly about her. And where that story kind of goes better than I did like ever in the series. And so like they're doing characterization. Everybody has a distinct character from these familiar from Megatron to Optimus Prime to Duke to Baroness to Deathstroke to Cobra Commander. And yeah, they're the people I love, but in a very edgier, deadlier universe. Like people get murked in this like quite often
Man,
and quite violently. And so, yeah, this is like the grown-up version of this, and I think it's underrated. And they kind of put down, I think, some accolades of how fast this sells in this book and the sales were. And I'm glad they did because I didn't know that information offhand, but like I would hope so because yeah, this is like one of the better franchise universe launches like I've ever seen, and it's cooking really, really well right now.
yeah,
Get
it
in.
is. Yeah, I mean, you're even in the preview, you're even seeing some of that violence, right? Like they are not afraid to really make these stakes matter, and the battle feels like a genuine battle. Like you can feel the the seething between Megatron and Optimus in this story, and as things have built out. And the way that Megatron story turns is fantastic, and right in line with things. But like, and again, the artwork, there's a splash page of Megatron and Optimus fighting, and it is just, my God, it's just stunning. Yeah, it's a cartoon come to life. And again, GI Joe's doing the same thing. So both of these universes aren't going anywhere. This is a spot to hop in
Can
because we
can I
got big
amend?
things going.
Can I amend my answer? I gave
Yeah.
Williamson and everybody's working on this. Let me rephrase that. These are 80s, 90s kids like us who were similarly deeply traumatized by both Transformers the movie and G.I. Joe the movie. And that is very clear in this. Like
Yeah.
you could see the points of trauma and you're like, oh man, yeah, that stuck with you, right? When like homie, people caught it in those movies and we were not prepared for that because we were just watching cartoons all day and then these movies came out and some of our favorite pretty much all our favorite heroes got like either horribly maimed,
Yep.
poisoned, ripped apart, killed outright. Like, and so like, yeah, these guys are still recovering, but I'm happy we're doing trauma therapy together. It's fun.
In such a great way. It's such an awesome way.
Yeah.
Another book we have raved about on this show is The Last Mermaid.
Let's
And
go.
my God, oh, this was appointment reading. I read this as soon as I possibly could. I actually read it so like I had to go back and reread it because I was like, when did I read
Yeah.
that? Um, what are you? I mean, this is, to me, visual storytelling at its finest, and this issue is no different. I mean, there's stakes, yes, there's dialogue and things, but it's just all so cohesive and working with each other. And we also get some actual kind of, we get a new person in the mix, someone that's been teased. So there's movement forward, And then we get this big action sequence that is not just pretty, because yes, it's gorgeous, but it's just so like creative in how it uses light and shadow, and it plays with that. It, man, I just can't rave enough about this book.
Yeah, this is like my Shogun of comics for 2024 right here. Like Last Mermaid is just like every issue is like a whole ass like experience, and by the time I'm done, like I'm just like, whew. First of all, I usually reread it immediately, and then like I'm just like, oh my god, like yeah. And I have aquatic fears of like stuff, and so this book is kind of
Mm,
terrifying for me in the way. I mean, just the artwork and the way that it plays with comic page space art and uses that is pretty insane, and just keeps you immersed in an almost all aquatic setting for most of these last couple issues. And just we've seen like Derek Kirk Kim, and we've seen, we've talked about the backstory of how long this was worked out, this series was planned, and you can see the world building in this. Like this series is kind of proof of concept of like when you spend enough time building out a world in your head and like really build it out, like from everything from the technology these people are wearing to
yeah.
the kind of life forms we're seeing. Like there's this whole quote unquote villain of this thing is a sea beast, and I use that with a lot of asterisks and stuff. But just finding out how deadly, because our mermaid is formidable. She has a mech suit that's formidable, but seeing how dangerous this creature is in a variety of ways in this issue is it just shows you the level of imagination that has been put in this. Like this creature's bred for this world, and it is a killer, and like it can do pretty much anything, and it's just like it's terrifying. And so yeah, it's not one of those easy things like, oh, I scratch it and I get away. No, man, like this thing is persistent about its food, because I'm sure it all makes sense because food's probably scarce in this world. So, like, yeah,
Right.
it's hunting for this meal, and it's going to keep on. And so, like, these are all the levels of details you get that allows you to make each issue like an effective short story, so that, like, we see things happening in the moment, but it implies so much more. And so, yeah, it's crazy how we're just getting started in this. And this is still just like one basic chase sequence that we've been on.
Yeah.
And yeah, and it's still like that. In the next issue, will be like that too. It's just as balls to the wall, just like Dire Straits, and nothing's ever let up for like a second. But when we expand this world, I feel like it's going to be one of the more successful world expansions you can pull off.
Yeah, and also too, it's one of those things where, monster designs. I mean, we've seen a lot of creature designs in movies and TV and comics and everything else, right? So, it's one of those things where, like, when you can create a creature that actually is unique and feels like it's something altogether different and original, it's always a plus for me, right? It's actually one of the reasons why I love Cloverfield. Also, I just love that movie, but the creature design is so weird and different and off-putting, and that's also a running theme in this week's books because we got a lot of different creatures showing up that are kind of creepy and weird. And this one, again, it's deadly, it's lethal, but it's just doing its thing, right? It's just trying to survive. So it's fantastic what this book has been able to do. And like you said, it's scratching the surface. We haven't even gotten answers as to so many other questions, but it keeps moving along at a great pace. You mentioned it before, so be a perfect time to talk on Batman. Also, it's been a Batman heavy week. What did you think of Batman? Because we're kind of entering this next phase of that book.
I'm settling into kind of what we got going on, what Chip Zdarsky is doing, and the road here has had its ups and downs for sure, but it's always been an interesting kind of dissection of who Batman is what's at the heart of this whole saga, Zdarsky volume, where we're gonna get out of him. And at least this issue really kind of upped my interest in what's happening here. If you just give me too late, we're going to get into what this whole arc is about. Batman has been supplanted by his own kind of militant Batman persona, the Batman of Zur-Anar, and who downloaded himself into this android body he built, then has convinced the world that this is Bruce Wayne, and that he died and this was his backup plan to put himself in this android body to be Batman forever. And he's convinced Superman and the Justice League and some of the Bat family about this. And Bruce Wayne is really on the run and trying to get his life back after being locked up in a prison with the Joker for a little bit and escaping. So yeah, and Batman's mentor Daniel Capetillo is like helping to pull the strings of all this. So this issue really kind of made me believe that Zardesky actually has like a really good vision for this and possibly landing this plane. There are a lot of interesting turns here for where we can get to, because we're at the point where I need to know that there's some kind of new era of Batman coming. And we do that. We get Bruce kind of getting into a place where I can see we might get back to some classic Batman. There's all these red signal flags that some Silver Age Batmaning in that kind of brighter spirit of Batman might be coming back our way. I'm interested in that. The Thing bringing Amanda Waller in, Capetillo in, and what Capetillo's doing with Arkham and all that, and scenes with the Riddler and that backup story were really interesting. So it's feeling like we're getting to a new era of Batman that Zardesky's building to, and I'm actually really interested to see what that is, because we've kind of played in with different variations of the same Batman era, but ever since '89, we've been basically in this dark, brooding Batman world, and it'll be interesting to see. I mean, there's some reveals in this by the end, and things I think we still have to write up when I get out of here, that I'm very interested to see. And Zur-NR failsafe is growing on me in like this new Batman android body. There's some action scenes, and having this character around and at least in the back burner at points will be very interesting to me. So I'm liking it better.
Yeah, I think it's one of the reasons why I was really loving was it Dark Detective? Future State?
Yeah.
When
Yeah.
he was in that space of not having all the tech, not having like he had to rely on the greatest thing that he has, right? His mind and his resourcefulness and all that stuff. And that's ultimately at the end of the day, right? You can have all the tech and stuff, but that's what makes Batman so compelling. And for them to find a way to like not, we kind of saw that attempted, with Joker War and stuff and kind of stripping it down. But like, I like here that it's not necessarily like, okay, he doesn't, the cover teases, right? No allies, no,
No weapons, no
no
hope.
weapons, no hope. But like, it's not like they stripped all that away. It's that like people are being deceived. So I like the way that how they've worked that into the story without removing all this other stuff and like making it like I just think it's actually really impressive how they've woven that in. And now we're getting that Bruce. I also, as to not spoil one particular thing towards the end, not everyone has been fooled, and I thought I immediately saw that and went, oh, Kofi's gonna love this, because one of the people that's not fooled and that knows is like one of your favorite. It's like one of your favorite Robins. I was happy. Yeah,
that's why I almost got confused
happy
about the last book. I was about to reference him, and I was like, "Oh wait, that wasn't that book." That's right. I was like, "My boy is back."
Because that's always something that, again, it's smart because it's leaning into what each of the Robins do, and so it actually makes perfect sense that he would be the one to not, to like know and also be like right there by his side. Like, I just love whenever Batman embraces family. To me, that's when he's the strongest. And then we always do this thing of where we have to like revert everything back, and he's got to be brooding again. I can't stand that. I just wish we would stick around in the era where like it's okay to be dysfunctional, but you can still embrace the people around you, and these what essentially are your kids. You can still embrace them. You don't have to constantly cut yourself off. We've just seen that so many times, and I hope we don't get that here. I'd rather be in the grave for a while than just go back to that cycle. So maybe fingers crossed on that.
Well, that's where I think you're hitting the nail on the head, because I think just to kind of focus this in and on like a final point, I think that's what we are getting. There's one scene that really stood out to me in this book, and it's a flashback scene between Bruce and Barry Allen. And it kind of is a scene that's very like quick and quiet, but it showed Bruce the advantage of being with other people and working with a team and kind of that. And I want to see, like you, I want to get back to that. I want to get back to like the Justice League cartoon moments where Bruce isn't always the smartest in the room. He's not always the guy who has to carry it all. Like his friends are quippy and smart and kind of love him anyway, and they're like, all right, I know you want to go in there. And what was I watching? Oh, it was Crisis on Infinite Earths, the animated thing, and there's like a whole sequence there where Bruce is about to like piloting a drone. He's like, I'm gonna shoot this whole place up, and they're like, whoa, like chill, like we can have another plan before we just blow this whole thing up. And he's like, I don't know. He's like contingencies, and they're like, oh god. And then like Flash and them have to like get in there and like solve it before Batman's gonna do it the Batman way. And I like that kind of dynamic. I like it where Bruce is like, okay, try your hopeful way, but I'll be back here with like the ultimate bomb plan. Like, and people are like, oh god. All right, like calm down. And like I love that kind of dynamic with them. So I hope we get there too. That's all I would say. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, for sure. I echo that 100%. That's what I would like to see. Wolverine is nearing in on 50. It's one of the shining stars of the X books recently. How are you feeling about this as we near closer?
I had to make a Sophie's choice right before I got on here, and I ended up reading X-Men Forever. So I'm sorry to everybody.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well, okay, so how is X-Men Forever?
Oh man, there's some cool stuff with Hope. There's some, if you're a Messiah Complex fan, there's some cool callback stuff for that. Other than that, can we please get to the end of this? I can't wait for this I'm so excited for From the Ashes at this point. Like Fall of X is just the fall of my interest. So read Wolverine. I should have.
Okay, so as number one, I am a giant fan of Hope and Messiah Complex and all that stuff, so I will probably end up reading this. I read Giant Size X-Men, and I didn't put a cover in here because it was just okay. It was fine. It was there's actually some interesting moments about Angel in there, but also there's a big chunk that's like a reprint of a Marvel 2-in-1. So like it was there's some interesting stuff in there about Angel, but like you really have to be an Angel fan, which I've always enjoyed Angel, but compared to some of the other stuff this week, it's just like it was good. It was okay. So anyway, our that's our X book summation of this week. I want to move into a book because I want to make sure I give it some time. Ain't No Grave, number 1, is the new book from Scotty Young and Jorge Corona. Wow. This book, again, it's a theme this week of just beautiful books. This book is just stunning. There's just, and sometimes there's like hardly any dialogue in like certain, especially like early on, like certain like 2-page sequences of, it's just this former outlaw, former thief, and she's now living this life. It's really described as like Unforgiven style, and it very much is. Her name's Ryder, and she's going on this journey, and you don't know where to for a considerable part of the book, and there's just parts where she's just traveling through the world and then sees kind of Western vistas and dilapidated houses and stuff, but it's just beautiful. I mean, this book is really just a tour de force that way. But then also you get this, like, I love the almost like it got some like Joe Mad vibes from the like character design like aesthetic. Like you get this kind of slightly more animated look, like the coat's kind of like this oversized, kind of more stylistic coat, and there's a lot of those little touches throughout the book. And then the stuff that happens, like there's a couple kind of WTF moments that happen along the way, and then one big kind of reveal towards the end that also kind of bring a decision made early on full circle. I was hooked on this. I thought this was great. I'm kind of hit and miss on Westerns. I always give them a chance, but I'm kind of 50-50 on whether I stick around. This will be one I stick around with. Did you have a chance to check this one out, Kofi?
No, sir.
This is, man, I am in. Very excited about this.
I disagree with only one thing. There is no former outlaw. You're born in. You're never sworn in.
Oh.
And there is no retirement.
You know what? That ties really well into the book. So you are correct in that, very much so. And then Birds of Prey. You still, I mean, we laud this series consistently on the show. This was another. I enjoyed this issue immensely. Kofi, did you have a chance to check this one out?
I'm still working my way through, but no, this is next. I'm getting like Wolverine, Birds of Prey. We're getting into like things I don't do for this show. Like I'm just gonna sit down and enjoy these as my nighttime readings in my chair with my pipe, and my paper. So I'll be doing that.
Yeah. Also, I will say, you kind of this arc in particular is very Barbara Gordon centric. Everyone knows that's like one of my favorite all-time comic characters, period. So you're always going to have me there. But I even if she's not part of the full-time team, I always love when she's a part of the book. But again, this book is really, I feel like week in, week out becomes more and more the Barda show. And so
Oh,
delightfully, like that's a
yeah.
good thing. That's a wonderful thing. Barda's getting so much love there. Real quick, Captain Marvel #8. This series took a minute to get going for me. I early on, the first couple issues were a little slow and developing certain plots, and especially the dynamic between Yuna and Carol. Like I wasn't necessarily so sold on, especially because we had kind of removed a lot of Carol's allies that made Kelly Thompson's run so great. But as time has gone on and that relationship has started to actually develop, and we are getting some of the Marvel characters brought in, this book is clicking for me, and it's really starting to hit its stride now. So really digging what we're doing there. Crocodile Black is a very different series, and I'm very captivated. It's a book essentially that takes place during kind of the height of COVID. So it was, stores are closing, going out en masse, all that stuff. It's very much right in the middle of that. And so it deals with a young man who's already having issues with escapism, and so you're like, oh, okay, it's like, targeted at like mental health, but then there's also this not even supernatural element, but kind of, that is introduced, as far as like he's seeing a little kid, but like the visuals of how that kid is represented is kind of disturbing and creepy at times. And then there's this other element about these crocodile boots, and like he finds them, and I won't go into like where he finds them or how he finds them because that's kind of spoiler. But what I will say is they set the book in like a very different trajectory, and it opens with a very brutal scene, and then by the end it starts all to click. It is a very different book, but I am in. I gotta see what the hell happens here. So I did not know exactly what to expect, but it is worth checking out. And then I want to give a shout out to Monsters Are My Business #2. Speaking of off the wall monster designs, this book is delightful. I just love it. You got chainsawing, you got Cuddles back with the chainsaw, but then like the other monster, again, really original monster designs in this book. The other monster is like, has like a bunch of eyeballs on his tail and has all these claws and stuff, but then like turns out to be very like very polite and very like, oh, I don't like to get my claws bloody. Like his personality is like completely different than what you would expect. And so then he's playing off of, the murdering koala, and so, dude, it's just so much fun. I need this to be a show. I need this to be an animated show, because my God, it would kill if it was given like the HBO Max Harley Quinn, like tone, and then you just ran with it and let it be a bloody mess. It'd be amazing. I dig this so much. So much original stuff happening right now in comics. So Kofi, any other books you wanted to shout out before we wrap?
Always read some manga. Manga's dope too. So just shout out to the
Absolutely.
manga verse. Continue on with some Blood Hunt. I know we haven't talked about it here, but I'd be interested to talk a little bit more Blood Hunt. That's about it.
Really? Okay, that's interesting. I on purpose did not do like, because there's like 3 Blood Hunt tie-ins this
Yeah.
week, and I was like, I'm not gonna overload. Kofi's gonna hate me if I overload Blood Hunt. So okay, that's interesting. Okay, Dracula, one shot hit. I haven't had a chance to read that one. But also, and I'm trying to find it on here. The book I was actually really Blood Hunters #1 was fun, and it has some characters that are kind of beloved characters: Hawkeye, Cloak, or sorry, not Cloak, Dagger. So very curious to see. Well, maybe we'll revisit that next week. But until next week, thank you so much for jumping on here with us. We love hearing your feedback. If you got comic recommendations, books we should jump back to, if we missed them, let us know. You can check out all of our content on audio podcast platforms, as well as our Comic Book Nation YouTube page. We have Anime Initiative on Tuesdays. We have obviously the pull list on Wednesdays. We have Quick Save on Thursdays, and then the main show on Fridays. And of course, leave some time in there for all the fun little bonus episodes we do along the way. So until next week, catch you later. Deuces.